What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm PokeHunterJeff, and if this is your first time watching, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell below if you want to be notified when videos just like this one drop. And this is the second in a series I'm doing. We'll cover each set that's going to be rotating out in April. That first video is on Scarlet and Violet Base, but today we're going to be covering Paldea Evolved. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so I've got Paldea Evolved pulled up on my screen. When we look at this set, there are some really strong artworks. When Paldea Evolved initially came out, it was definitely overlooked. Now that, Gen 9 has had some time to sit, people can look back on this set, and especially with things like the Magikarp, Tyranitar, all the starters, this set has performed very well and it will continue to do so. Today, though, Paldea Evolved is known for having some really bad gym rates. And today we've identified the cards where I think there's some really strong value plays. So to kick it off, we're going to start with this card, but really it's three because we're looking at all three starters in Paldea Evolved: Fuecoco, Quaxly, and Sprigatito. Again, before I really get into this, I do want to emphasize some of these PSA 10 prices are already very expensive, guys. If you can't afford that, I do recommend picking up the raw card as well. I think it's a correlation there. When you have a really bad gem rate, that spikes the price up for those PSA 10 copies, but that also does push the price of the raw cards higher in the future as well. So these are strong value plays, whichever way you want to take it. Either way, I do recommend picking these up. Fuecoco is right around $50 right now, raw. In a PSA 10, it's going for about $300 to $320. The gem rates on these, I believe, are all pretty similar. We'll take a look at them individually, though. So if we start off with Fuecoco, number 201, 685 PSA 10 copies out of 3,455 submitted. So let's do the math. 685 divided by 3,455. That is a 19.8% gem rate, sub 20%. That is terrible. And there's only 685 tens that even exist right now. So I do want to say this. When you have these really low PSA 10 pops, there's not going to be many listings for these cards. They might be few and far between. And some people might be asking really high prices for them because they essentially control the market price when there's nothing else listed. Remember to be patient. You don't have to buy the first copy you see and overpay an astronomical amount. Be patient. If you can find one at a card show, great. But there are also listings that will pop up over time. 685 isn't nothing, and people will sell. So just be patient with some of these plays, guys. Don't rush into it, and be smart with your money. Now, jumping to Quaxly, much cheaper. This is a $13 card raw, and in a PSA 10, it's only $130. People are sleeping on my guy, the Duck Boy Quaxly. So, PSA 10, this is going to be even worse than Fuecoco, and I think you'll be surprised to see this. 316 PSA 10 copies. That's it. That is all that exists on the market. And that is out of 1,851 submitted, a 17% gem rate. That is right around the gem rate of the Magikarp. Now, I know those are two different, very different cards, but one is drawn by Shinji Kanda. You can't really compare to that with the hype that card has seen, but this is still a Gen 9 starter, and all the Generation 9 starters are going to have some serious nostalgia associated with them as the generations continue on over time. I think people will look back very fondly on this era, and when you have these really bad gem rates, I just think having a copy of each of these in your inventory could be really smart. Just remember, be patient, don't overpay. There will be copies that get listed over time. Sprigatito, $38. So it's kind of middle of the road for the three, Fuecoco being the most expensive, but $38 in a raw copy, around $200 in a PSA 10. I do think this one is slightly more available. So number 196, 652. So about the same as the Fuecoco. 652 copies out of 2,879. So a slightly higher gem rate, but 22.5% is still terrible. And a sub 1,000 PSA 10 population. I do think that for a lot of these cards we're going to look at today, save for the ones that are already over 1,000, it could be really hard for them to hit that number if they haven't already. These sets are going out of rotation. Realistically, how much more Paldea Evolved is going to get ripped? Let alone with these terrible gem rates, how many of those are going to get PSA 10s? It's very possible that these could push over 1,000 copies in a PSA 10 at some point. But even at that, that gets eaten up so fast these days. 1,000 copies of a PSA 10 card is absolutely nothing, and you're really just splitting hairs at that point. That is still extremely low. So 22% gem rate on Sprigatito. I think it's a strong pickup. Moving out of the starters, I'm looking at Meryl. I've said this in a couple of videos, and I'll say it again. Cards featuring other Pokemon in the art tend to do very well. Meryl is a very popular Gen 2 Pokemon. It's a really cool art. I tend to be a fan of cards that you can see like under the water. That's just personal preference for me. That in no way plays into the value. But this is a $38 card, raw, a little over $300 in a PSA 10. It is seeing a spike right now because people are starting to catch on that Paldea Evolved is rotating out. And we'll take a look at the gem rate on this one too. Meryl number 204, 697. Are you seeing a recurring theme here with the PSA 10 populations on these? They're all really low, and 4 out of 4,047 submitted. That is a 17% gem rate. One of the worst in the set. Again, getting very close to that gem rate of the Magikarp. Still a very popular Pokemon. And in my eyes, yes, the Magikarp is very cool. Yes, it's very hard to grade. But that doesn't constitute a... What's that Magikarp going for now? Pushing $3,000 in a PSA 10? Like, it doesn't constitute a $2,500 price difference for some of these cards. Now, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to identify some value plays where we can put our money, where we're going to see that exponential growth over time. So moving away from the Meryl, we have the Sleepy Raichu. This might be my favorite card in the set, honestly. It's the cutest Raichu card we have ever received. It's a really cool art. People have caught on for sure. The raw price has really started to spike. We saw a PSA 10 price hit around a little over $600 back in September, October. It came back down, and this is what I like to see, guys. This is the time to buy. Obviously, if you were able to get it at $360 when it hit its low, that's a fantastic buy as well. But it is starting to creep back up now. When I see that, paired with a set that's rotating out, a raw price that is spiking, that gives me all the ingredients I need to see to know that this card has a very bright future ahead of it. And I want to get in on that ride before it becomes unattainable. So looking at the PSA 10 populations, Raichu number 211. This is one of the ones that has over 1,000 in a PSA 10 population, but that's just because a lot more of them have been submitted. It is a more popular card compared to the ones we've looked at so far. So again, a 1,500 PSA 10 population is nothing these days. That will get eaten through very fast. And all that means really for you guys is that it is a little bit more readily available to pick a copy up. You don't have to sit there on your hands and wait for a copy to become available on eBay or at a card show. These should be a little bit easier to get your hands on. Not saying it will be easy because that is still low, but hopefully you can pick up a copy with that number. I did something wrong here. So 1,565 copies exist out of 7,980, just below 20% gem rate. Again, terrible. And I just think it's a really strong pickup right now. The chart tells me everything I need to know, paired with the other factors we've already talked about. Last card we're talking about today is the Tyranitar, $63 raw. This might, of all the sets I'm going to talk about in this series, as we go through everything that rotates out in April, this is probably a top 5 card for me. I have a PSA 10 copy myself, but honestly, I would love to have 2 or 3 more of this. Look at the chart, and this is exactly the time I want to be buying. So it saw right around $800 in a PSA 10 back in September, October timeframe, came crashing back down, and has really stabilized around this $600 to $650 price point. I think that's a really healthy chart right there. And to me, it looks like this is getting ready to make another leg up. I wouldn't be surprised if next year this card was over $1,000. And when we look at the gem rates, you'll see why. If we go to 222 Tyranitar, 1,684 PSA 10s out of 9,079 submitted, an 18.5% gem rate. All these cards, guys, all of them, such a bad, that's essentially 1 in 5 for all the cards we've looked at today. 1 in 5 or worse. You submit 5 copies to PSA 10, only one of them's coming back as a 10. And that's honestly if you really know what you're looking for too, which some people don't whenever they're submitting their cards to be graded. I just think the PSA 10 populations for these probably won't see too much growth as the years go on. I'm sure they will rise, absolutely. People are still sending these in, but I think we're going to see some serious stagnation with that. And all that means is that the demand, it hasn't gone away. I don't foresee it going away anytime soon. That's just going to continue to push these prices higher. So that's going to do it for today, guys. Those are my picks for Paldea Evolved. Next video, we'll be talking about Obsidian Flames. So again, if you don't want to miss that, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's get hunting.